Today's lesson is on Target 1, Interpreting Graphs of Periodic Functions. We learned in class today that a periodic function is a function that repeats a pattern of y values at regular intervals. One complete pattern is called a cycle. And a cycle may begin at any point on the graph. The length of one cycle is called the period of the graph. So here we have some graphs, and we're asked to highlight one cycle of the function and find the period of that function. So you might want to pause for a second and get a highlighter so you can highlight these cycles. So I can start anywhere I want when finding my cycle. I'm going to choose to start at the point 0, 0. And I'm going to highlight until I get to the end of this pattern. And then once the same pattern starts repeating again, I want to stop. So you can see if I stop right there, that same pattern shape is then going to start being repeated again and again and again. So then I wanted the length of that. So the length of this goes from here at 0 to 4. So the length of that cycle is 4. So the period of that function is then 4. For number 2, we do the same thing. I'm going to highlight one period. So this time I'm going to start over here. There's one period. And now I want to again measure the length of that. So going from here to here. Looks like we get from -3 to 0, so that's a length of 3 units. So in this case, our period is 3. Number 1, it's asking us, is the function periodic? If it is, what is the period? For number 1, that is not periodic. The y values do not repeat. Number 2 is periodic. So I'm going to highlight one cycle. So if I start here at 0, 3, and there's one cycle. So then measure the length of that cycle in order to find the period. Going from 0 to 5, so our period is 5. Number 3 is not periodic. Number 4 is periodic, so let's highlight one cycle of that graph. So start here at -2, 2. Looks like that would then end at +2, 2. So the length of that, -2 to +2, is the length of 4, so the period is then 4. All right, some more vocabulary regarding periodic functions. The midline is the horizontal line midway between the maximum and minimum values of a periodic function. So on this graph, the midline would be the purple dashed line dividing the graph vertically. The amplitude is the distance from the midline to the max or the minimum values. In other words, half the distance between the max and the minimum values. So for our graph, we've got our max up here. Here's our min. And then the distance from the midline to the max is the amplitude, as well as the midline to the min. These values, notice, are the same. So this graph would have a midline at y equals 1. Have a max at 3. And it would have a midline of 2. Or amplitude of 2, excuse me. So here we have some practice problems where we find the amplitude, equation midline, and period. So I'm going to start by highlighting one cycle of the function. So if I start here, there's one cycle. So the midline is going to divide our graph in half vertically. So in this case, our midline is at the line y equals 0. Amplitude is distance from midline to the max. So this distance right here, which we can see is 4 units. And the period is length of one cycle. Notice we're going by 2s for our scale. So it starts at 0 and actually ends at 10 for our period. Number 2, for a midline, in this case our midline, it's kind of tricky. It's right between 0 and negative 1. So our midline is y equals negative 0.5. Amplitude would then be 1.5. Period. If I highlight one cycle of the graph, so the distance from here to here, 2 to 6, or 4 units. Number 3, why don't you pause the video and go ahead and try number 3 on your own, and then replay the video when you're done. So number 3, for your midline, hoping to get y equals negative 1. Some of you may have thought it was y equals negative 1/2. But again, notice the scale are going by 2s. So this point right here is negative 2. This is negative 4. So then our midline is y equals negative 1. Our amplitude would then be 3 units. And for the period, if I start here for one cycle, it's going to end there. So the period is 8. That's it for target 1.